Tuesday. And that's fine. I like that.
Hold on, Fred. Be good.
Paper, I think, pretty well covered. I didn't get a chance to read this one, but this morning said, I think that mainly discussed last night. Mary wasn't there, so this will be enlightening for her.
For sure.
But we first started out by discussing the action we had taken the night before and how it might affect us. And I said there were two things that I felt we had to consider. One was postponing the regular election sometime in November, which would, of course, we'd have to extend our term to do that.
Excuse me, no, I just want to grab this if I may.
And the second thing was what we wanted to do about the August 12th election. And quite frankly, when I went into the meeting, I thought best that we would do it together. And some of the people felt that it would be confusing. All the time I went into the meeting, I thought the two questions were separate. I realized that if you adopt this plan, it's all will be on the ballot really will be the charter itself with the plan incorporated in it. Is that not right, Rick? I mean, you wouldn't have a...
Separate deal, no.
Yeah, and I can see where there would be some confusion. Then between Lydia and Chuck Evans, I think we came up with a suggestion that perhaps what we needed was to postpone the August 12th election until after your election, which I assume you're still aiming at September 9th. And the more I thought about that, the better that looked. Because actually, if we're all right, we won't even have to have two other elections. And that ultimately will be a cost-saving factor as well as settle a lot of problems. Since you did take the bull by the horns and decided to put a plan on with the charter, now if you hadn't have done that, if you hadn't chose to make that choice, then I think we'd have had to go ahead with our election first, and I would have been likely to have them separate. But I think the majority of the Assembly feels that they would like to extend the election into November, postpone the August 12th election until sometime after, and talking to Mary Coffey, I think we would have time if we could set the ordinance for hearing for the week following tonight, and so that we could immediately call for the special election. We'd have time to make it for the same day as the city goes to ballot on their bonds, etc., and still meet the 6 months requirement that the state has on us for reapportionment.
So that would be October 7th, the regular election.
And then we would go for November something or other. We'd still have time for the call.
Jim, are you saying that if the charter passes, it eliminates the need for an apportionment approval election?
Yeah.
Sure. That's what I heard you say.
Because what you're doing, in effect, is you're reapportioning because you have chosen an apportionment that goes to the charter. So therefore, you would eliminate that, and that apportionment would, I assume, take effect next day. According to the transition, and you go into that period. So that's what our feeling was relative to what we know you feel now, and I guess what I need to take back Monday night is...
And that if it passes, and that election is eliminated, and that...
and you put the officers on too, so we don't have to go
Okay.
through.
Otherwise, if it doesn't pass, you will be postponing your candidate election for continuing borough government in November. And the city would go ahead with their October city candidate election if the charter did not pass.
And the borough would have on that same election date their reapportionment map. The charter failed.
Now, what, Jesse, this isn't really so pertinent to our problem, but I'm wondering if you considered what happens if at the October election the Assembly's apportionment plan is not adopted by the voters. What do you do then?
Well, then of course I suppose Cindy and Regional Affairs can come in, or they can give us another chance to choose another map. I assume. I don't know. really what, whether they would take over. I have a sneaking suspicion they really wouldn't want to get involved, and they'd say if you put another map or another election soon, you know,
But I mean, would that defer the November date again?
it would have to.
Yeah, and you could reach
Yeah.
that at that time.
Yes. Hopefully we wouldn't have.
Well, I think that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Mrs. Dotson's coming in, and I think that sounds fine, and I think it is correct that if the charter is approved, these other procedures are moved.
Everything's been accomplished.
That would eliminate one more election possibly, so that if the charter is approved, there's only one election instead of four. Mr. Chairman, this is a different subject. I'd like to ask Mrs. Dodson what her feelings are on runoff, if that's appropriate at this point.
Appropriate question.
We'll be considering that this afternoon. The present charter contains a provision that there will be no runoff with respect to any election. We have before us some language that would essentially do what we have now, which is the 40% rule. And there are also permutations of making it apply only to the mayor or only to at-large races. Could you?
Well, my personal feeling is, and I've discussed it with some other people, and I feel that runoff for the mayor is advisable. But I think runoff for the assembly candidates would not necessarily be advisable because of the fact that when you have a runoff election in a small district, you don't get a voter turnout, and so you're really not getting any better expression of the will of the people than you would with than you did originally. I mean, you might have more numbers of people, a larger percentage, voting for the person.
I'm caught, Jesse, and you've been in the political process a long time too, so you've seen what can happen. That you can get multiple candidates diluting what might have been the strongest candidate. And this is one argument some people give for the runoff, but
Yeah, it's a hard choice to make if you do have a lot of candidates. You know, some voter would say, well, if this one wasn't running, I would have voted for that one. But I think that these are the chances we have to take in our form of government. And I do feel that the runoff is expensive. It doesn't really give us any additional representation because of the small vote.
But you favor retaining it for the mayoralty.
Yes, I think so, because I think there's enough excitement in that election, and it is an area-wide election that, you know, and the media would be covering it, and so there's interest kept generated. But, you know, in these small district ones, half time people forget about it.
How about, I asked about your feeling on, for the school board, if that's a fair question.
Yeah, I almost said that when I said assembly, and then I had second thoughts, because, of course, that's the way you have it is an area-wide again, and that perhaps would generate enough. I think I would tend to lump it with the assembly.
And we contemplate now designated seats
Well, yeah.
For the school board.
for the school board.
That might do that. That would help boost that. Yeah, I think designated seats that often kind of intended for this district. Is your desire still, you're aiming to bring us the charter to put on the ballot for September 9th?
It's all humanly possible. We've got 10 days, no?
The date that we're aiming at is the 21st of July for that agenda to bring you a copy of the charter, probably not in its printed beautiful form, but just
Handwritten note.
yeah, and a request by resolution that it be placed, that the question be placed on the ballot.
Okay. Mary's talked to you, Rick, about including dates for nominating petitions and all that sort of thing. That'll be in the transcript part of it.
And she gave me all of those specific dates to have.
I'm going to start thinking a lot sooner than we thought we were going to have to.
They open the 26th of July and close the 8th of August.
I wasn't even going to start thinking about it.
Happy
That's
summer.
That's only 3 weeks from now.
That's right. Make some fast decisions.
I think there's some people who get off on stirring pots to see how people run and squirm.
Yeah.
And just revel.
Now, Mr. Carson.
We wouldn't be casting any aspersions.
Well, it does
Not at all. Look at the grin.
it does do this to some. They'll have to be filing for the city election
Yeah.
and for the regular school board election and for this election too. If they decide to go.
Well, we would probably, in this case, I assume, we would push the school board election to come at the regular election. Because that might also, would be delayed then with the assembly.
For the assembly.
So it's not- it's
That's right, just the
probably-
city can't delay.
Yeah, it's probably just the city.
I think that's best. What, the reason for the September 9 date is, Mary Coffey tells us that that is the last date at which they could stop the process without printing the ballots, and it's almost simultaneous with the day of the closing of nominations for the city election, and so people probably wouldn't be actually out campaigning. They would have had to pick up their petitions and turn them in, but that's it.
Expended any money in that. Or any great,
Mr. Chairman,
Mary?
Jesse, have you thought any about the possibility of putting bombs on that September 9th election in case the charter does pass, that it would prevent having to
When
have
the charter passes.
a separate election on those?
Well, I think the tendency of the whole assembly last night, if I read it correctly, is they don't want anything on that ballot except the unification charter question. And I think that was the real thing, that they want to keep that pure and separate, and so that there's no distractions or confusion about anything. I discussed with Mary Coffey the idea of putting them on our October election that we would have to have if the charter failed. And she was more reluctant to do that, which would be the same time as city school, of course, because of the time involved. That was the approach at the time of the original.
We had not really considered when the school board election would be. I confess, it was a private thought of mine, and others may have had different thoughts, that maybe that could be done at the same time as the charter election. You're indicating that either a personal view.
Go on with the charter, with
Yeah.
the candidates.
Well,
Are you indicating a view that should be in October instead of in September?
no.
Okay.
I think that the charter under, the school board under unification, or what
Will
the
be.
whole school board would be, is the
We're
last.
not electing the whole
Not.
school board.
Change
today.
You'd only be
Just the-
electing the
Those
three
are
that
three
would
seats.
normally.
Okay, well then, anyhow, whatever it should be under the charter should occur at that time. Now, if that, then I would assume that if the charter was down, they would have to run again. I don't know that there'd be any.
They would have to file prior to
Yeah.
prior to September 9th.
No, probably not, because we're going to postpone it till November.
Again,
to
your
make it-
school board.
Yeah. So, it appears, though, that if they ran,
Sure. On
they'd
a
have to
designated
run
seat
again.
basis.
There'd be no way we could absorb that into the next election.
Because the basis would be different with the designated seats.
That's good.
There are lots of little loose ends that
Yes,
have to be
there's lots
pulled
of
together.
ramifications, of all these things, and they just keep occurring to us as we go along. It's very fascinating, but sometimes frustrating. You wake up in the morning night and think, oh, gee, I forgot about that.
I hope that it all occurs to us before the 21st of July.
Well, yeah, I think Mary's working on it. She's been working a big line on it, and I think that I assume there is a thing. Maybe we'll get it. But I really think strategy-wise that this is a very good move. get hung up on the apportionment, because that can be done, it will be done. We'll have to do it after 1980 anyhow.
Well, did I hear you say earlier that Eagle River having what some people consider this the worst plan?
I do personally.
You do?
Yeah.
What is
And,
your reason?
Well, because the districts are, because it looks like something Smitty did, to tell you the truth.
That's the definition of a camel, a horse
Yeah,
made by a
right.
committee.
Everybody, it's designed to satisfy everybody. People want multi-member districts, people want single-member districts, and as most of these things, it really doesn't satisfy anybody as I see it. It has a lot of advantages on paper, but I have a feeling it's going to be out of balance very shortly, especially with the two on the hillside Rabbit Creek area. I think that area is going to be growing so fast that it's going to be needing reapportionment very quickly. But it's not that bad a plan. As I said, I certainly would not support the charter. No. You're behind the post there since you came because of that. And, it doesn't make too much difference one way or another. We can live with it, I'm sure.
Until we get a better one.
Well,
Until Eagle River leaves again.
No, come on now.
Well, if Eagle River leaves again with that one district dropping out, but call Joel today and ask him if that would leave us malapportioned or not.
What did he say?
I didn't get hold of him.
Well, that won't happen.
Well, we'd have
before
one
the election.
representative we'd be one short on the assembly.
Yeah,
We wouldn't
that's
have
a
11 people.
But part of that runs over into Muldoon. Was that? I read that back.
That's a
Make it at all.
1976 problem.
Yeah, we hope. But if,
Well, even if the local boundary commission acts, the legislature has to act.
Yeah.
Well, I feel that by the fact that it didn't vote for this plan, that it probably will garner more votes from Eagle River because of this than any other plan we could have designed.
Mr. Chairman, as a Johnny come lately, I think that Mrs. Dawson is being really commended for her attitude of cooperation here. I think that's really
Couldn't agree with you more.
I sort of felt most of the assembly felt that the charter was extremely important, and I thought that was really a good sign. And I think it is a subtle endorsement. We're saying, gee, well, we didn't have to worry about this problem because the charter's not passed. And I think that it's a positive approach. I was I can't take credit for coming up for it. I did soon see the light.
I did understand that there was some discussion regarding the form of government. Was there any discussion during the course of it regarding the form of government?
Not during the meeting, and I don't know that we've had any official discussion. I'm sure there's been some discussions around various tables.
Right.
We rarely all get together at one time. Somebody said we can't have dinner together because we couldn't agree very
I don't know, but we would have enjoyed being out on the lawn last evening where you were at your meeting.
It was very nice.
Just roasting.
Met in the courtyard?
We had a work session afterwards, and of course the Charter Commission had to take over the summer home. We went out in the courtyard. It was very pleasant.
planning zone.
Yeah. Oh,
Great place.
We finally opened up
couldn't
the
hear
slide.
very well, but that was
Well, I'll drop my seed that all of us who get into the new government, wherever it is, having gone to a rock concert at the sports arena last night, which is the black hole of Calcutta with 3,000 or 4,000 people, we need some more open air spots
Yeah.
for events to take place. Critical.
I would think so. Of course, this weather's kind of
Fabulous.
Okay, and am I to take back to the Assembly consensus that you agree with our consensus?
Did you hear the consensus?
Is
I
there,
think I gathered it from
That our, you probably read the paper.
With a special message for Benny Lang.
is there any disagreement, substantial substantial disagreement with the stand taken by the Assembly.
In other words, to schedule now the charter election on
Yeah,
September
Sounds
9th.
good, makes sense.
If that doesn't pass, then we'll go ahead and schedule.
Anything to ease the voter from always multiple elections.
I think that's the thing that sticks in my mind, the criteria, and this seems to be evolving into that kind of pattern.
It's the best chance. If they want to get away, we can use that as a selling point. You don't want to have 2 more elections this year,
Right.
vote for the charter.
Or maybe 3.
Councilman Shawna, well, both you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being here, and I think you can take back to the Assembly the census agrees with them.
I think it's real positive.
Good.
Real positive.
Thanks much.
You're welcome to stay around if you want.
One more meeting you don't have to stay at. Great.
Thank you.
The next piece of business before us is our committee report. That's the Charter Protection Committee. Ken Joseph.
Mr. Chairman, there was a Charter Production Committee meeting yesterday. The committee report that is before you, it's attached to the agenda, talks slightly about Article 16 transition. It'd be my recommendation, though, that given the time factors, we might want to hold that up until our next session. For one thing, Mr. Garnett and I want to review those provisions and then have the subcommittee review them again. But reverting to the report on one of the carryover items was community councils that you had before you, I think, in Mr. Garnett's memorandum of July 1, a new Article 5, which would be one section, Section 5.01. This is not new material to you. At the time, the Commission didn't act on it, thinking that it should be looked at more closely. We've really just adopted that language in our report because we, for want of anything better, it's very vague, admittedly, and the ordinance will have to specify the role of the community council. But we just really couldn't reach a consensus that would improve the language of July 1.
Mr. Chairman?
Carlos?
Pat, did you have an opportunity to talk to Glenn Briggs, and was he shown a copy of the proposed community council? Did he ever get in to talk to you?
Yes, Glenn came in and we talked about community councils, but at that time there was no proposal
no
for a
draft.
community council. He was receptive to community
Well,
council.
he wants them very much. I just want to...
Well, the old this one speaks of duties and responsibilities instead of powers and something else, powers and rights. It may be a distinction without a difference, but it seems to be less troublesome to some people to use the new language. This does not contain the old language about sharing of powers, or provide specifically for the supervision of services by a community council. But that is a possibility under an ordinance which the Assembly could pass. I think, in essence, that what we're concluding here is that this may be a legislative matter that the Assembly in its leisure can deal with more appropriately than we can.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for adoption of the wording suggested in Committee Report Number 1.
Moved by Holmes, second by Sir Deluski. Adoption of the committee report number 1 from the Charter Production Committee,
Mr. Chairman?
report of July 10th.
I think that this wording, if taken in conjunction with the Board of Supervisors that we've provided in the service area provision, gives us the possibility of having exactly what we had in the first draft of the charter, but it doesn't lock the new government into something which might prove unworkable in a few years. It gives them maximum flexibility, and yet I think gives them an idea that we wish for community councils to have some duties and responsibilities. We might also consider commissioner comments associated with this.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Joseph, would the location of this be adjacent then to the service area provision, and we would also plan to bring in the equal rights provision there? What
Well, I don't think we were going to realign the equal rights provision, but we were going to, I think, realign perhaps service areas and assessment districts adjacent to this.
Is there any further discussion on committee report number 1?
Mr. Chairman, only that I don't think, I agree with Joe's comment, I don't think we can put the flesh to it. It's one that it's almost like asking the question of quality of life. We want to see this idea incorporated, but it really needs a great deal of thought and depth to establish the framework for it. So I think this is good.
Any further discussion? If there's no objection, adoption of committee report number 1.
Mr. Chairman, committee report number 2 is simply designed to implement the Commission's policy of providing for designated seats. And that requires a change in Section 901, which is before you. It also requires a transitional article to provide that 3 of these seats that normally expire in 1975, 3 seats of the school board incumbents will be challenged this year, and then 2 will normally expire in 76 and will come up, and 2 in 77. This is in accord with the Commission's decision not to require that all school board members stand for election this year.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of committee report number 2.
Second.
Chairman,
Moved by Holmes, seconded by Roney. Adoption of committee report number 2. Discussion. Mr. Parsons?
Arnold, did you contact the school people on their feeling on designated seats? I haven't had a chance.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, I was out of town on this, and there had been a couple of people testified on it, but not a great deal of testimony. And I was somewhat concerned with this change because there hadn't been, perhaps, I thought, enough public discussion. I did call Tom Kelly, President of the School Board, to see how he felt. Their major concern had been on all of the school board members running, and he was much relieved to realize that was not going to be required. He felt that there were pros and cons, but that the school board would feel that this certainly would not be important enough to even have them consider taking a stand against the charter. And he could see merit in both sides, and really said that he knew that the commission would give close debate to this, and he would in no way see any major objection.
Chairman, I'm not so concerned with the school board as I am with 2,000 organized teachers. And I called and I couldn't get an answer. They may have been on vacation, but I think it's important enough for us to touch base. I remember in our earliest discussion with them that they preferred the at-large, and they actually did a straw poll among ABEA members, and I am not aware it was a divided kind of consensus on the thing. I don't see any objection, but I would hope not.
Mr. Josephson?
Of course, I don't know what this is still at large, of course, but it's a little bit. This only implements what the commission said it wanted to do. We'll have the whole charter back again, and if Mr. Parsons or any one of us can make that contact, I think we could take it up.
I think it's an important time
That's right.
the people involved.
Any further discussion on committee report number 2?
Question?
Question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So ordered.
Mr. Chairman, committee report number 3 is not a recommendation from the committee. We're simply pointing out that the runoff election policy, which we established in the case of the mayor, was not established either for the assembly or the school board. We discussed the pros and cons in committee, and a couple of the arguments are included by me in this note to the commission, but there are other arguments too. You have before you language, though, that would enable the commission to include runoffs for assembly personnel if you desire to do so, and similar language to be used in the case of the school board. This is a question of policy that we think the commission should address.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Hall?
I would move for adoption of committee report number 3 with a change following the word candidate, adding the phrase for an at-large seat. I'm not sure that that's quite the right word, and you might wish to change the grammar a bit, but
Where were you?
it would say if no candidate for an at-large seat receives more than 40% of the vote cast for the office, this would make it apply specifically to the mayor and the school board, and should the government at any time in the future reapportion to have at-large seats, those would also fall under the runoff.
Second, open district.
Moved by Holmes.
Mr. Chairman, I've had discussion over the last couple of days with a lot of people about runoff because it's something that has bothered me. I spoke with Mary Coffey, who has been quite vociferous about not supporting it. And I have some statistics concerning the general runoff. In the 3 years, in all the boroughs in Alaska that they've had this runoff provision, there have only been 3 reverses due to runoff. In other words, those candidates who were leading in the first race also won in the runoff, except in 3 instances. The turnout is generally throughout the state between 4 and 5% in a runoff election. It goes as high as 7, sometimes maybe 9% vote. She did feel that a runoff in a mayor's race and maybe in the at-large races would be better than having runoff generally, but she still would prefer no runoff at all. Others that I've talked to, it's been kind of mixed. Some say yes they do, some say no they don't. I don't think that there's probably a community consensus one way or the other. But I do think that for the mayor's race and the at-large races, there is merit to ensuring that if you have, say, 10 candidates for mayor, you at least get a crack at deciding between the 2 top ones.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Ronnie?
if there's only been 3 turnarounds in the state, we've had them all because Mike Rose is turned around, and twice in our district it has been turned around. And
Mary Coffey did discount. I questioned her about the Mike Rose thing. She did discount that one because she felt that was an unusual situation having a withdrawal. But she did say that 2 were in your district and 1 was in Fairbanks. So we've had most of it. 4 if you consider the Mike Rose thing.
And we haven't had that runoff provision very long, have we? I think it's only been
so.
3 years. 3 years.
Mr. Chairman, I really think we ought to stick with the runoff provision a little bit longer. I have a very strong feeling that since the papers do not do a very thorough look behind the scenes at the candidates, that there is advantage, particularly when there's a large field, of the neighborhoods finding out more about them, and they pass the word around. And it does have effect. I don't think that it's non-expensive, but I think that it's less expensive than the chance of ending up with the wrong candidates. And at least in our end of town, we think that it is desirable.
The motion for the House is moved by Sherry Holmes, second by Jim Parsons, that we adopt Committee Report 3 with a revision in the first line of B. If no candidate for an at-large seat receives more than 40% of the vote cast so far. Is there any further discussion? Question is called. Be a roll call. Chai?
Yes.
Troni?
No,
Holmes?
Yes.
Josephson?
No.
Parsons?
Yes.
Reed, yes. Sturgill-Lewski? 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 2.
Mr. Chairman, I changed my vote to yes.
Josephson reversed his vote. Changed it to yes.
Well, I don't want
6 to 1.
to prevent that with 7 people here.
No other committee report number 3 has been adopted with the change, adding 4 in that large seat after the word candidate.
I only believe in vetoes for mayors.
Yes.
I don't know if that wording is going to cause any problem. Maybe
Well,
we could look
they'll
at
have to,
that.
it will, but it can be adjusted.
rough.
And there's also, it's redundant because we did it in the case of the mayor clause specifically.
Is that large?
No, we've done it once,
Oh, I see.
so, but it will be adjusted.
Committee report number 4. Yes.
You want Rick to work on the wording of that?
Yeah.
Of my added little
Your
phrase.
added wording.
Okay, Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Josephson, committee report 4.
On number 4, limitations on terms of the assemblyman. It was it's again a policy question for the commission. There is no limit in the charter on the number of successive terms that a member of the assembly can hold. And incidentally, a related issue here is given Plan 5, which you have adopted. What is the length of the term for the assemblyman that you want? That's not in your document, but we should discuss that too. In any case, there is a 2-term limit for the mayor, a total of 6 consecutive years. The Charter Production Committee really needs guidance from you as to whether you want to have a limitation on the tenure of assemblymen.
Is there discussion regarding committee report 4?
We have a motion.
No.
Mr. Chairman,
This is a policy question at the moment. The motion would be appropriate if you wish.
I would make a motion that we limit the number of successive years to be served to 6 for the assemblyman. That's the same. Well, that's according to whether it's the terms are going to be 2 or 3 years.
If the terms are 3 years, Fred, in a 2-member district, which we now have, there would be a year in which no voter would have an assemblyman he had to vote for. And if it was a 1 year in the Eagle River area, there would be 2 years out of 3 when he would not be called on to vote for an assemblyman, as I understand it. Of course, there would be school board races and other things to bring him out to the polls. So the length of the term should be re-examined in that light.
Was there a second to Mary's motion?
I second.
I rather strongly feel that when you have any sort of a multiple member district, that it is advantageous to demand a stopping at some point for a breather. If they're taking good care of the job, they're not off for any prolonged vacation, they're not necessarily seeing what's going on in other places, and I think it's desirable to have at least one term off to see what things look like otherwise, rather than just going on and on. There is an advantage to any incumbent to get reelected, and I don't think it is necessarily to the advantage of the public in general.
Carlos?
Mr. Chairman, I have thought this through. I can't support a limitation on the terms of assembly people. I think there's an extraordinary amount of power vested in the mayor, and I think that's entirely appropriate to have a limitation there. But where we have assemblymen that are really up, whether it's a 2 or 3 year term, I think that the voters are going to be able to keep a close enough eye on them so that they'll make the choice. It's only 1 out of 11. They don't have an undue amount, really, of influence. And I've also, just over the years of watching local government assembly and council people, there's a certain maturity that comes lots of times with the job, and they can really do an effective job after some on-the-job training, so to speak. So I can't see limiting it. You can, of course, have someone that's not doing their job, but eventually I think that the competition will rise and that situation will be limited.
Parsons?
Chairman, I would concur with Mrs. Sturgluski. I think if the district is being represented well by someone who is mature to the job, who's grown with experience, that to say that, especially since we have this kind of districting rather than at large, that area must be served by someone new without the experience, without the know-how that his district has grown to expect and has returned him to office, that it's an unnecessary constriction of that particular kind of government that we provide.
Mrs. Holmes?
I'm somewhat undecided on this. I can see things on both sides. I think of the situation in which it's, well, in our local government, a lot of the people who have been elected over and over and over again are people with whom I'm not necessarily philosophically in tune, and I would wish that at some point we could stop and get some fresh blood. But then I think, well, there are also those with whom I really do agree, and wouldn't it be a shame not to have them continue to serve in their seat just because of an arbitrary cutoff? And I have seen some people overturned where I thought they would just continue on indefinitely because they were the incumbent. So I don't think I'll support it, although
Is there any other discussion? Roll call vote. Chai? No, wait, I'll give you the motion as I have it down. Limit the term of assembly members to 6 successive years.
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Holmes?
no.
Josephson?
Yes.
Parsons?
So,
Reed?
You made up your mind?
No. And Sturgluski?
No. 4 to 3. The motion fails.
Chairman, I'm going to try something else. I'd like to try something else on this. So I move that we limit an assemblyman to not more than 10 successive years.
Why don't you make that 8 now, second?
No, 10, not 10.
Make it 9.
What's your rationale on 10?
Well, I think that's enough is enough. I think a decade is, then you should get some fresh blood in.
After 6 years, I think you should get some.
Well, I voted that way too, but I didn't have the votes.
I'll second that.
It's like a manure pile. If you don't turn it over, it stinks. You got it. You know, it's something.
10 years is,
I'd like to try it at 8. I think 10 is way too long.
Well, then if you have 3-year terms, that's just 2 3-year terms and you're back at where you were before. At least with 10, that's 5 2-year terms or 3 3-year terms. And then they could have a breather for 1 year and come back.
I think anybody who wants more than 10 years in a row is crazy.
Well, I'll second it. I'll second it. I'll second
You're
it.
better off just forgetting about it. You're gonna go 10, it's really meaningless. It's meaningless. I mean, 10 years.
I don't think it's meaningless.
It doesn't mean a thing to somebody.
How
Well,
many years is
Mr. Chairman,
Joe?
if we take no action, the point of inquiry, if we take no action, what do we have?
No limit.
No limit.
Fine. I move for the order of the day.
Well, the order of the day is my motion.
Question?
Question is called. The motion is to limit the term of assembly members to 10 successive years.
Successful?
Successive years.
Oh, that sounds really absurd.
I don't want to see that.
All right, Shy?
No.
No. Crony?
Yes.
Holmes?
Yes.
Josephson?
Yes.
Parsons?
No.
Reed? Yes. Sturgeluski? How was that?
We just switched 4-3 the other way.
Mr. Chairman,
What did you say?
He said no.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to try 8 years, please.
Well, what?
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second to Ms. Crony's motion? Seconded by Sturgeluski.
I really truly think that this is a desirable point at which you should guarantee some fresh blood in the situation. If they haven't made the things by that time, why?
The motion before us then is to limit the term of assembly members to 8 successive years. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, that's so similar to the first motion because it's just 2 3-year terms, if that's the case, or
Or
one more
4 2-year terms.
2-year term. I don't think I can support that.
Question.
Questions called. Crony?
Yes.
Holmes?
No?
Josephson?
Yes.
Parsons?
No.
Reed? Yes. Sturgeluski?
No.
No. That's 1,
You have one more.
2, 3, 4, 3.
How are you going to do it?
Tie. Oh,
How is Shai vote?
Fred. I forgot.
Right, I'm gonna be the swing voter. I'll vote yes.
1, 2,
8 years.
3, 4 to 3 for 8 years. You still don't have a majority.
I'd like to try 1 year.
Mr. Chairman, the question of the 2 versus 3-year term should be resolved for the Assembly. I can, if the committee will allow it, I'll try to bring up some of the discussion we had. There was...
May I interrupt for a moment? Vince Casey's on the phone. I'd like to get him to give us his thoughts on the designated seats for the school board election.
Which he doesn't want.
You care to hear him this afternoon?
No. No.
If he can get here during...
Right.
If he can get here within
Get here by
5:30,
He's not gonna be able to make a presentation by 5:30.
he can get
It's
here
5
by
o'clock
5:30.
now.
That's in an emergency is the first word.
Oh, definitely.
In the case of any seat which has any multi-member districts in it, and so with our present Plan 5 and the present wording in the charter, it would be 3 years.
The way it is now,
Everybody.
any district is a multi-member district.
Mr. Chairman.
Everybody
Could
has.
we have, the explanation of where we are, please?
Yes, well, Mr. Chairman, as I understand, the language that we presented several meetings ago on this subject, after some discussion, provides that in the event that down the road there are all single-member districts, if there is a single-member district plan, terms will be 2 years. If some or all districts are multi, then the terms of each person elected will be 3 years, even if that plan includes 1 or 2 single-member districts. The idea, I think, was that people should have the same term.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Joseph.
That would mean then that the present posture is that there are 3-year terms and the motion is not necessarily affirmative. However, one other option that was discussed in the committee was to have a special length of term for the Eagle River representative, since he is from a single-member district. And I'll only mention that to you as another variable.
Mr. Froney.
Mr. Chairman, I think that we said that until we made our last votes that anything could be reconsidered. And I think that in terms of the 2-member districts, it should be reconsidered. I'll have to tell you that the initiative will apply to the chartered government, I'm told yesterday evening, and that it would automatically take effect in next year's election.
In next year, 1970.
In next year's election. And if at that time the voters chose a 1-member district, it could be immediately go into effect the following year without any trouble, without any disruption in the local government. If the terms were 2 years, it would be effective.
Mr. Chairman?
Pardon.
I find abhorrent the idea that the initiative referendum process can reach a government and not get in existence. And I don't know what legal opinion Mr. Crony got, but I find this somewhat bizarre. I'm not yet through. I think that Eagle River is a special case, and that as such, it is in essence the only person there, and they need some stability of office, whereas overlapping terms for two representatives in a district don't have that. And the mayor's term being 3 adds that kind of stability as well, I think. And I think perhaps we should make some exception for Eagle River as opposed to 3 if we decide on 2. I'm willing to go with 3 all the way myself.
Just for discussion, if I prefer the 3-year because of some stability to the office, particularly with a multi-member district. But I also wonder how we would possibly set that up. Would it be the mayor, say, 1 year? Some areas would have just the mayor to vote on. Can we work that out so that they would have the mayor at least to vote on in those years that they did not have a seat to fill? Or how is that going to work out? Will some areas have, say, one assemblyman to elect plus the mayor in the same year? Or could we work it so that we would have in the off year at least an opportunity to vote for the mayor? I haven't thought
It can. I haven't thought it through either, but it could be done that you could have, for example, if your initial terms were 2 years and thereafter were 3 years, that would mean that in 1978 a mayor election would be held and there would be no assembly seats, and then you could stagger them so that in other words, in 78 there would be a mayoralty election, in 79 half the multi-member seats would come up, and 70 and 80 and the other half of the multi-member seats would come up, and then the next year a new mayor. You could
But in
stagger
effect, then, what you would be doing in 2 out of 3 years, then, would be to be electing 5 one time and 6 another. So, well, forgetting the school board, you'd really be getting all half of your assembly in 1 year. So you would have, that impact would be the same as if you had a 2-member district. And I don't know if that's good or bad.
And And then the only election, except for school board, then the mayor would run alone under that plan, and there would be no assembly.
Mr. Chairman, in order to set it up that way, you would have to, in this initial election, have the mayor elected for a 3-year term, half your assembly members, approximately, elected for 1-year terms, and half of them elected for 2-year terms.
No, you could have them all elected for 2-year terms.
Well, but then you'd turn the whole assembly over
but then you'd
in 2 years.
Or they could run for another. We really haven't gotten into this except to discuss in the committee. I mean, but you can stagger them by saying that the higher vote getter in each district gets the longer term. You can stagger them by lot, or you know.
Or you can designate
Or
in advance.
you can designate in advance that one seat is longer than the other.
I think the sense of what we've arrived at so far is that we don't wish to limit the terms of the assembly. And this is the question that the Charter Production Committee was asking.
That's correct. The second question, we understand that. Yeah, the second question was whether you want to adhere to the 3-year term, and since there's no motion pending, and I assume that you do want to adhere to the 3-year term for assembly. And then we'll come back with a recommendation as to how these should be staggered, and whether there are advantages and disadvantages in having assembly seats up when the mayor is up.
No further discussion.
Okay.
The
Chairman, this probably is
Parsons.
I think the ongoing stability of the body is in more jeopardy with a 2-year term than as Arliss is saying. You're getting it almost half the assembly turning over each year.
Look at the House of Representatives. A large United States.
Look at
A good example.
the United States Senate, a 6-year term. Now we're at it.
All right. If there's no further discussion, let's go on to committee report number 5, Article 6 of transition. Mr. Joseph?
Maybe Rick wants to comment to this. We were concerned in the committee about the phrase "immediately on ratification" as to whether it was precise or not. Rick,
Joe, I think the question you've stated here is the pertinent one about whether ratification means election eve or after the results are certified. I think we did borrow this language from the 71 Charter, and probably ratification would occur when the election results are final, namely on certification. But I don't see any harm at all in making it clear that that's what we mean, if that's what we mean.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the language change proposed in Committee Report 5 and quotes in the last paragraph be adopted.
Second.
Moved by Josephson, second by Froney, that the language in the last sentence, in quotes, of Committee Report 5 be adopted.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Parsons?
I've got some sense at that production meeting where I think there was some confusion about what immediate would be, and I almost think that if we could list a specific date in October, which allows a month at least, rather than that precipitous temperature, it might be advantageous.
There are a whole I don't know that we had a date on that particular point, but we did discuss a whole lot of specific dates. And I'll ask that when we complete this item that Sherry go through those dates, and then that we'll take them up at our next session, because Mr. Garnett wants to go through them too.
But that would not affect
this. Mr. Chairman,
the certification, would it?
Yeah, no, the reason is that the charter can become effective and the people who hold office under it can be put into office at a different date from the effective date of the charter.
that.
That's true. Well, the way the transition was set up before, as Sherry points out, the effective date of the charters is not the same as all the events that happen with respect to dissolving cities and taking office and so forth.
And is there any further discussion on the motion? Yes, from Mary Tony. Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, so ordered.
Yeah, we can take, just to go to number 6. 1602B says that the election ordinances of the Borough apply. We were a little concerned to make it clear that if any of them are in conflict with the charter prevails. For example, the borough has adopted by ordinance one districting plan. We've got another. The change is recommended just to choose them.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of the suggested change in Committee Report 6.
Moved by Holmes, seconded by Shy. Adoption of Committee Report number 6. Is there any further discussion? Questions called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, so ordered.
If you have your earlier transition article, Sherry can run through.
This is from the adopted, the public.
Yeah, she can run through how the new dates would look, and what at least what we're thinking about in terms of dates.
This will have to come back before you with it all specifically written out. But essentially, the nominating petitions may be filed no later than August 8. For your information, the nominations will open on July 26.
July 26th, how many is that for?
2 weeks, I believe. Let's get my calendar out.
I'll be right behind you, Fred.
July 26 is a Saturday. August 8 is a Friday, so it is 2 weeks. The election would be on the 9th.
Is that Steve?
Yes.
It will be.
The election under this charter shall be held on September 9, 1975.
Will be.
No former government may hold an election after, and so forth. Now, the dates for runoff would be, the results of the election would be certified on the 15th of September. The runoff must be held by the 29th of September.
The 29th?
Is a Monday.
The 15th is the.
This Monday.
What happens?
Certification of the results. And
That's only
scheduling.
about 6 days, is that right?
Right, Tuesday to the following Monday. Mary Coffey's ordinance reads that certification of the results must occur on the next Monday following the election. So certification on the 15th, runoff by the 29th, which is 2 weeks later, certification of the runoff on the 6th of October. And what we had tentatively discussed in committee was beginning the term of office for everyone on October 7th, which is the regular election date. It could also be on the 6th. It wouldn't really matter. But the idea being that we would not thereby shorten the terms of the school board members or anyone else. It would set the beginning of the term on the regular election date of the municipality, which will continue in following years.
She didn't see any legal problem with the certification of in effect. puts them in and then, you know.
And then beginning the
Well-
terms,
I don't know how to do it.
we could have the certification on the 6th, and what we were discussing was the possibility of a sentence which would say, the clerk or the mayor shall convene the new assembly at 7:30 p.m. in such and such a room on October 7th. And the assembly shall organize.
The only thing
Then you have to say except in the case of an emergency which might result in the inability to certify the election by that date, and then you have kind of a provision for what would happen then.
The only thing, Sherry, that's kind of rolling around in here, if that's the beginning of the term on the 7th, and you talk about 3 years, is that specific? Because obviously those terms would run through the next election and the certification, so I think we need to be careful on the wording that it allows for that. In other words, the terms would not end October 6th. So
No. Terms, we have in here the terms that an incumbent shall continue to serve until his successor is elected and takes office. So I think that's
Mr. Chairman,
Ronnie?
is there a motion in order to suggest that the runoff be on the 23rd? I think 2 weeks is long enough to be expending money for a runoff, rather than postponing it till the following week to 3 weeks in between the regular election and the runoff. I think 2 weeks is long enough to spend extra money on a runoff campaign.
But you won't know for sure until Monday the 15th.
How do we do that now? Well, don't you have to certify it before you start running?
Yeah, you'd have only 1 week in that case.
Okay.
These were the dates given to me by Mary as she saw the best ones to meet all the requirements. I suggest that we not take action.
I thought she said by.
Yes, by the 29th.
This is just for information, for your information.
It could be held, say, on the 25th instead of the 29th on a Thursday.
We won't go further with the report, except the next sheet is Mr. Garnett's redraft of the materials that were, I think, agreed on in principle by the commission. Is that right?
I believe so.
Okay.
This is right on 1404.
So we don't have to ask redraft.
It's sort of a style matter.
Well, and what's our policy, Mr. Chairman? Have we been acting on these, or did it just go into the document?
No, I think we've acted on them. As they came up, to the best of my recollection. And I think we should. So if it's all right with the group, we'll ask Rick to follow through on this report. Ask Joe to criticize if he has any recollection from the Charter Production Committee standpoint.
Mr. Chairman, the only question I have is on the second page, initial terms. We might.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Well, let's take it and in order go
We're
through.
going to actually go through it.
I think we should. Rick?
in 1404B, just as a matter of style, I suggest moving the phrase "while he was in office" in line 4 up to a point right behind the word "increased" in line 3. So it would read, or the salary or benefits of which were increased while he was in office, comma, beyond increases applicable to all municipal employees, comma, for 1 year after he leaves office. Other than that, no. Joe, did you have?
Yes, I recommend that we insert the word paid
PAID, after the word elected in the first line, and I'd like to speak to that.
Elected,
Paid official. Mr. Chairman, if we don't do that, I think we may have prohibited each of us for all time to come from holding any municipal office. And I think that's just unreasonable, given the unique circumstances.
oh, I see.
Mr. Chairman, I might-
Okay, this is the Charter Commission, we create the
That's right. Now, in any event, that, just as a point of information, I think we would be talking about a year. In both the prohibition in the first phrase and the second phrase should... Well, I think that's still in there. Yeah. And we did discuss this. In the comparable provision of the Alaska Constitution, there is a specific exclusion from this type of limitation for constitutional conventions. It seems to be pretty generally held that a body which is dealing with the organic law and so forth should not be covered by this type of prohibition.
Would you recommend that change rather than inserting?
Well, it's a matter of style in terms of how you want to phrase it, whether specifically with reference to this body or charter commissions or by reference to... Let me ask this, though, Rick. I'm troubled by... Let me pose a hypothetical. Assume that a member of the Charter Commission is also a member of the Borough Assembly. Yes.
totally hypothetical.
Would such a person be barred on the basis that she was an official of the municipality seeking office, which was created while she was in office, even though she did nothing as an assembly person to create the office, except authorize a charter commission election? I think, based on this bare wording, that is a problem. Let me just look at it. I think that an elected official created while you were in office. Yes, I think some refinement of that language would be necessary to deal with that situation.
I have a question too in relation to this.
Mary?
I don't very much have objections to a person getting municipal office where the job salary has been increased if they're willing to accept the lower salary that was authorized previously. Do the rest of you folks?
Well, it's a little inequitable, but it's one of the grudging acceptances of reality, I suppose.
I see no reason if they're willing to accept the previous salary, just because they were part of raising the salary for the thing, why they could not accept the job for a year. Whereas they could accept any other job, it may be that's the only job that they're really qualified for. Or the one that they're really interested in, maybe they would prefer it at the previous salary rather than being minus the job.
Arliss?
I have a concern here, trying to look into the future and find out if there might be other situations where you might have an elected official who was not paid, where this could be a problem. It seems to me, well, could we have a conflict, say, with a board of supervisors somewhere, and we go from a board of supervisors of the fire district to a very strong utilities type commission? Of course, it would take legislative action to change it. I'm just trying to see if there are areas, if we're really looking down into the future, to see if there are
conflicts there.
Rick?
Mr. Chairman, I think there are some things that need to be brought up about this provision. It's an adaptation, in a sense, of the Alaska constitutional provision, but it's different from that provision in that we use the phrase elected official. The Constitution refers only to the legislature. Now, there's a difference, really, in that the legislature or the assembly, in the case of the municipality, is the entity that creates new positions, and so this potential for conflict is there. But we're bringing in, say, the school board and possibly other miscellaneous persons who really would have no part in the creation of the new office in question. And I just wonder if the concept so broadened is workable in terms of what we're trying to do.
I think it is going beyond what we had intended.
We could limit it, in other words, if the
I
commission
think,
wanted to.
Mr. Chairman, I think it could be limited to assemblymen and school board members holding other compensated municipal office or employment created by the body on which he was serving. That would really get to the evil that we're talking about.
Mr. Chairman, there's an additional problem here that bothers me. Vince is here now, but for instance, the school board, I believe, receives an honorarium which really is not a salary. It provides, I think, a lot like the Charter Commission for meeting some of the expenses of the office and so on. But I don't think it's considered as a self-employment type tax, and I'm just wondering if that, well, okay, Joe, you're answering my unspoken.
Because what I'm saying is if we went the route of identifying the job,
Okay, then we could
we don't have to
drop
talk
off
about
the
paid
reference
and
to
pay,
I
yeah.
think, I think that would be very desirable.
Mr. Chairman, before we hear from Mr. Casey, I would, you mustn't do that. I would move to approve 1404A and C prepared by Mr. Garnett and ask that 1404B be redrafted.
Second, moved by Mr. Josephson, second by Ms. Holmes. Approve the redraft of section 1404A and C and return B to Mr. Garnett for further work.
That does not incorporate Mr. Joseph's suggestion about the word paid.
No.
No, that's just A and C.
Mr. Chairman, a question if I might.
Harlan?
On section C, in the event we have an independent contractor, we have that not necessarily rare case when an individual, we have selective bidding for some reason, only certain people can provide this. Would that bar, by this wording, this independent contractor from being involved in that? In other words, he's got to be involved in a competitive bid situation or he cannot participate.
I think, Mr. Chairman, the wording here does distinguish between independent contractors engaged through the standard competitive bidding procedure and the case where you have a negotiated bid because of...
he could not take part in a negotiation.
I think that's true based on this wording, yes.
Desirable.
Is there any further discussion on Mr. Josephson's motion?
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion is passed. Mr. Casey, we appreciate you being here, and if you, we have taken action at this time anyway, but all of our action is still subject and open to possible change. But the action we took earlier today, the The system of public schools for the municipality shall be operated by a school board of 7 persons elected at large from seats designated as seats A through G.
Mr. Chairman, I think it should be pointed out, Vince, that the policy was not adopted today. It was at a meeting, I think, in June, as a matter of fact. The language referred to is attorney's draft to implement the policy as to how that designation would occur. But the policy, all our policies, as Mr. Reed said, are tentative in the sense that the whole document will be put before us for a final rank.
Certainly appreciate here. I didn't think it would be this early, so really I tried to prepare some notes. I hadn't been able to attend the public hearings that you had, but I guess I've been misinformed because I had heard that people had testified wanting to insert the designated seat system, and I had been misled to believe that it wasn't going to happen. I just heard that it was going to happen yesterday. I think all of us remember school board member Sue Green. She went before the Borough Assembly last year supporting designated seats, and I also went before the board at the same time against it. So I wanted to pass on my reasons to you here this evening, if I may. The very first thing is when you have designated seats, what's going to happen is that the candidates are going to attack the incumbent's record more so than talking about the issues of what we can do for education. And I think that there are people in the community right now see this as an easier route to getting on the board. And some of those people, I think, are some of my very close friends. And I'm still opposed to this. I think also that it limits the chance of having low income and or minority people to go out and run to get on the school board. Let's say example, if I were on seat D and somebody wanted me off, they could get a popular person in the community to file for that seat and pour all kinds of money behind them and say there were 3 or 4 people running for that particular seat and I came in second, I could have a higher number of votes than people running for 2 other seats and not still be able to serve the community. Another thing that I said then, and it still holds true, if you do not change your position, I think that you should go further and divide the borough. Because then and now, at that time, I was the only school board member residing north of Northern Lights. Now, Mrs. Lindman is the only other person. As long as you have, I think, Bartlett, Chubiak, East, West, senior high schools north of Northern Lights. You have Romig, Central, Clark, Vegas Junior High, and Benson north of Northern Lights. I guess what I'm saying is 5 school board members live south of Northern Lights. 3 school board members live right in the East High attendance zone. I still like to see it left the way it is. You run at large, and whoever gets the highest number of votes, if there are 2 or 3 vacancies, then the 2 highest or 3 would give the seat. I think, if this happens, I think the chances of ever having another native person run for the school board would be very, very slim because of their culture is not to attack people. And they would have, as I said, to attack the incumbent. I can't remember all the other points I made, but I think those are the key reasons that I don't feel threatened as an individual right now, but I think later on I see it coming elections,
You see that possibility. Mr. Joseph?
You've been through this before, so there's no need in our going through the arguments, except that there were a couple of concerns we had. one, that otherwise the race becomes a name familiarity race, and it's harder for it's unfairly hard for the challenger, because you can't, you can't really discuss the issues because you can't focus in on exactly what the issues are. I mean, you mentioned, Vince, that an incumbent's record could be brought up, and that's really not because anyone is being pointed at, but really that's sort of a healthy thing, some of us felt, as a general principle, not with reference to the school board here in Anchorage, but just generally, that the opportunity to talk about a public official's record is a healthy.
I think that can be done right now. But I think what I was trying to say is the issue, I think, the emphasis would be put on the previous record instead of talking about what the candidate was going to do for the education system if they were elected. When I ran, there were 40 people running, and I had never run for public office before, and I had to find out what the issues were and try to be prepared to discuss them.
Don't you think that if the people are going to attack the person's record, they will come up with a new idea on how to implement the plan and policies of the school board, right?
I guess one of avoiding a question, I guess another thing is if there's any particular group, say like the school administration, wants to control the makeup of the board, I think it makes it much easier when you have designated seats. I think that the issues can be discussed if candidates are willing to discuss them, whether it's designated seats or not.
On the matter of control, one of the things you can do in a multi-member thing is have the bullet vote or the flunk, so that a special interest group obtains influence beyond its real numbers.
This is one of the things that was brought out when I appeared before the Borough Assembly, and my argument was that supposedly I'm a product of the bullet vote. But I think the people that had access to the minutes of the school board meeting will find that I haven't been any worse, and maybe not as bad as some of those who were not products of the bullet vote.
Mr. Chairman. Vince, one of the things that's been kind of a concern, I think, has been the use of the short ballot, and this avoids that. Do you have any feeling on that? Do you feel that's been a problem?
I've read editorials about it, and as I said, supposedly I'm a product of short ballots. As I said, that was the basis for the argument last year when Mr. Green came before the Assembly.
I guess I wasn't aware of bullet and the short ballot were the same.
Pardon?
I wasn't aware that a bullet and a short ballot are the same, so I see we're going over some things around here. But do you think it's happened in other cases other than yourself?
I think I read something about before I was interested in public office, but it was discussed, I think, in the last election, but I don't remember anybody supporting a short ballot or bullet vote or any editorials on it. Maybe they should have. My friend should. My friend voted short ballot.
You mentioned, made reference to minorities. You feel that, I guess I just have to ask this the way it's on my mind, that in Anchorage in 1975, race is still a make-weight where people vote against someone because of his race?
Yes, very much so. There's a real concern, particularly in the minority community, that the city is going backwards now as far as racial relations are concerned, as I say, the borough. And I would have preferred not to brought up race, but like you said, you got to ask the question where it's at in your mind, and I brought up where it's at in my mind.
I find that very surprising and really, I thought it was far better.
Are there further questions? No.
they didn't take a stand last year, and I don't know what they do. I really couldn't. I think that supposedly they were the organization that was encouraging short belt for myself and Dr. Sullivan on my van. I think perhaps, maybe because of the editorials and the publicity, maybe they stayed away from it last year.
Are there any further questions of Mr. Casey?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just wonder, we had much discussion on the school board on this issue.
Was there much discussion?
Well, have you discussed this recently at all?
No, when the letter came back that the school board was satisfied with the charter as presented at that time, I said I didn't go page to page, and I didn't think that was not going to be in there at this time. Nobody discussed it on the school board.
Of course, Mr. Chairman, it seems to me that the short ballot can just as easily be a device of a bigot as for someone else. I mean, or the device of an anti-education group as a group of educators. It's an impartial tool in that sense. That was our concern, I think.
Lisa?
What do you think about having all 7 school board members run again?
Well, that's, I guess the best answer for me is that's an interesting proposal. I don't think as a candidate really I should take a position on it.
Since you'd have to run anyway.
Yes.
This is your year to run it.
Right.
And who else runs this year?
My term is up, Dr. Sullivan's term is up, and Herb Lang's term is up. And that's not the reason I'm here or against designated seats, because I have to run again from this scale. I think if you have designated seats, I think that I will get re-elected. I feel strongly about it.
Strongly enough not to support the charter.
Well, yes, being a public elected official, I certainly didn't want to sound threatening, but I do feel that strong.
Are there any other questions of Mr. Casey?
Yes.
All right.
I hadn't felt that there was a possibility of school board folks having to run twice because of the charter, if the charter failed. But from what Jessie was just saying, she thinks that they would. Have you strong feelings about that?
I guess I would say it gets expensive. I would compare it to a runoff, I guess. You have to go there.
Mr. Chairman, what is your view regarding a runoff? Assuming that we adhere to a designated seat, what would be your view about a runoff school board?
I would prefer it not to have to happen. In the year that I participated in the city, we did have a runoff, and the runoff turned out exactly as the election. It's more time consuming, expensive.
Are there other questions of Mr. Casey? Well, thank you very much, men, for coming, and appreciate your thoughts, and certainly get consideration. I don't know what will change, but at least we've heard it, and we appreciate hearing it.
I'm not sure that's the expressive. Thank you very much.
1405, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is an attempt to implement the sense of the discussion on the question of whether there should be a period of time within which no municipal body can act. I think that the wording is reasonably straightforward. So I won't belabor it unless there are questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just make a comment. I very vehemently object to this particular one, but we'll bring it back after the charter's all together. I was not on hand for the decision.
Lisa?
Does this mean they can't meet at all? At midnight, and then
No.
go straight to the 12 days off?
There wouldn't be action taken after that is void.
Well,
I read that, that they can still meet, but any action they take wouldn't,
The way I read it, they may not meet except in emergency during
well, it
those
doesn't
hours.
read that way. It says any action, the interpretation I got is that they can still meet, but any action they take is void. In other words, they can stay after midnight to discuss a subject, but
It says there shall be an adjournment.
that's a different provision.
Fred,
That's different from what we said that they shouldn't take action between midnight and 7, or
yeah.
that they could sit and yak if they wanted to.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if that was the intent, that seems to me that you've got a lot of people yakking, but if you're going to take any action, you're going to have to start that yakking all over again. It really, to me, you either cut her or you don't. And then if you officially no action was taken, people are going to go, but you really are legitimatizing a work session, which may really, I think, impact the citizens.
Mr. Chairman, you could still have, say, between 12 and 12:30, persons to be heard where you take no action on what they said, or reports given to you, or comments from the member on the board or assembly, and then adjourn. You would certainly be finished by 12:30 or 1.
Mr. Chairman, I feel that is the way the present body works, and this is true of the city council, of the planning and zoning commission, and of the borough assembly. That when you have persons to be heard, or you have assemblyman comments, or council comments, that's when you take action. So in essence, it seems to me, if you're going on after the hour, what you're really doing is causing that to come back and creating actually additional amount of time spent on public business. You're dinging her twice.
Well, we can leave that amount of flexibility, can't we, and let them judge where if they think it's a waste of time, they'll get out of there and say, take it up next time.
As I say, I intend to gain some support for changing that.
if the idea is to not require adjournment within the hours in question, but only that no official business be conducted, I think the phrase "shall be an adjournment" could be stricken, and also "conduct no business." And you could just add after the word "may" the words "take no official action." If that's the intent of the
That was the intent.
No bargaining points, no deal.
Delete shall be an adjournment, remember?
I'm just suggesting delete the word "shall be" in adjournment and leave in the word "may." After the word "may," put in the words "take no official action." Then delete the words "conduct no business."
The motion is in order. I'll move to approve the wording read by Mr. Garnett as a change to 1405.
Second. Would that be or the whole thing then?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, as I say, they would read, a except in emergency, the Assembly, School Board, and all municipal boards and commissions may take no official action between the hours of 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. actual time, comma, after a.m. Period. Action taken in violation of this paragraph is void.
The use of the word may is permissive in that sentence, isn't it? Isn't may permissive?
No.
It says may, they may take an action.
May take no action.
We said no one may,
Yes, may take no official action.
shall therefore be.
And Mr. Chairman, may I ask you,
Adopt 1405 as modified by Mr. Garnett.
Question?
Questions called? I take it there's going to be an objection, so
Mr. Chairman, there are two questions, it seems to me, as the amendment and then the main motion. I would prefer to see it handled that way as opposed to the amendment carried. We're really, aren't we amending? Isn't this an amendment to wording only?
Well,
Or are we adopting the wording? I'm sorry.
I just moved for the approval of what Mr. Garnett has read tonight.
Oh, okay. All right.
all right. Holmes,
Yes.
Josephson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yeah, she should be on
He's in the other room.
Lisa?
Yes,
vote?
he said yes.
Irish, yes.
Did she vote on the motion? Was she aware of the motion?
You want to divide the question?
I suppose.
Well, I don't know how she voted before. I wasn't on hand. I happen to think it's a major issue.
Want to try it?
Trade on major issue.
She appears to be temporarily indisposed.
Parsons?
With this. Yes.
Reed? Yes. Sturgill-Lucy?
No. What a fight.
Chai?
Yes.
Crony?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-1. Rick, 1406. Oh, yes.
Oh, that was. What was the vote on that? Did you announce?
6-1. Holmes, Josephson, Parsons, Reed, Chai, Crony, yes. Sturgill-Lucy, no.
1406, Chairman, grew out of discussion at the production committee meeting with Mr. Height, I believe, the risk manager for the city, about what effect such a provision would have on the city's insurance rates and so forth. As I understood the production committee's wishes, we were going to modify this language so that there would be some flexibility for dealing with minor claims. Mr. Height said that there really might be a problem with having a formal procedure of the sort spelled out here for every small property damage claim or workman's comp claim, matters of that sort. And I think really that is about all that this language does. The language change at the top probably does not have any real substantive effect. If the language is in the city charter, and the idea based on Mr. Height's testimony was to eliminate the word claim, since that was a somewhat vague notion, and make it clear that we're talking about suits for damages, lawsuits for damages. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Parks. Is it necessary that the charter contain quite this much content on this subject? In other words, the procedures that are spelled out here, is this not more an ordinance kind of thing?
It could be reduced somewhat, Jim. I don't know that aspect, this is the first time I think that aspect of it has been brought
Well,
up.
it is longer than it was.
Well, yeah, it is a little longer than it was, that's right. It is somewhat shorter than the version in the model charter, and it's the same as in the 71 charter and the same as the city charter, or somewhat shorter than the city charter's version, I believe, too.
Further discussion? Apparently Joe had something to say. He started to say it and left.
Mr. Chairman, he does feel quite strongly on this, but he should object to the 4 months or 4 months.
But, well, I'll take advantage of the fact that I believe this is, should be in there to take care of those, I'll call them frivolous claims by somebody in the middle of 4th of July weekend saying I fell down a spot of ice at the corner of 4th and G on December 24th or December 31st. Joe, you had something to say about this.
I don't know if it's been discussed. The term of liability and damages that goes along with what Mr. Height said. It's designed to make it clear that this has to do with recovery in a civil case, rather than I think workman's compensation and other things. He also indicated that this kind of language might be more restrictive than necessary in certain minor and routine matters. So this would allow the Assembly by ordinance to waive this notice provision. And that's about it. Otherwise.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval as submitted.
Second.
Moved by Harlot and seconded by Mary, approval of the modifications in the section 1406, notice of claims. Is there any further discussion? Question is called. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, so ordered.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Joe, did we need any further direction on B, or are we just taking that back in charter production? 1404B,
It's going back,
but you don't need any
Chairman,
direction.
I might suggest the type of thing that I gather the commission is looking for, because this could use polishing, but or else I was thinking of saying something like, for a period of 1 year after he leaves office, a member of the assembly or of the school board may hold no office created by the body on which he served, or the salary or benefits of which were increased beyond increases applicable to all municipal employees by the body on which he served. It's a marathon sentence, and I want to break it down, but that's the idea as I see it. Now, if there's other ideas that should be there, I ought to know now.
Are there any comments to Rick regarding this? In each, what guidance you can give. are no further comments, we'll go on to 1407.
Mr. Chairman, this just picks up the Commission's policy to refer the constitutions of the state of the United States and Charter as part of the oath. I move for approval.
Second. Joe,
Move for approval by Mr. Josephson, second by Arlett, to adopt Section 1407 as modified. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? So ordered. 1410.
If you recall, there was the flag of the old residual power, section 1410, which said the enumeration of specified powers in this Constitution may not be construed to limit the powers of the municipality. That meant to some readers that we were going through a charade in which there was no limitation really placed on anything the municipalities wanted to do. This is Mr. Garnett's effort to either clarify or obfuscate the issue, depending on your point of view. Rick? The effort is, in a sense, I prefer the word defuse the concern that was generated around this provision by trying to emphasize what we're really talking about is interpretation, almost a grammatical matter, rather than something dealing with the basic allocation of powers. It's very standard as an idea in charters and constitutions to avoid the sort of troublesome interpretations that sometimes arise from not having it in there. Maybe this will obfuscate it enough to still serve the purpose but not generate the political heat.
Chairman, I'll move for adoption as suggested.
Move for adoption by Holmes, second by Parsons.
Mr. Chairman, I think that this does exactly what we asked Rick to do. I think it's clear, and I would urge its adoption.
Is there any further discussion on 1410? Not? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, Section 1410 is adopted. Section 1414, definitions.
I think this is a frolic and a detour in a sense on my part. I put it in more or less for discussion because I think that the wording as it is now is a little awkward, and also we did have written testimony, I believe, from Sheila Gallagher that the reference to suddenness and to the permanency of the insufficiency we're talking about may really be too restrictive. It may make it virtually impossible to declare an emergency in a way that would stand up. At least for the purpose of discussion, I thought that reference to an unforeseen occurrence which would result in an insufficiency of services substantial enough to endanger the public health, safety, and welfare was a stringent enough definition of emergency to prevent frivolous use of that tool, and yet would not foreclose the use of emergency procedures where they were really called for. So I merely suggest that for consideration.
Chairman, I move for adoption of Section 1414 as submitted. Mr. Chairman,
Second.
Mr. Chairman, in relation to this, I wonder if that sort of definition also almost precludes a special election, which is, has to declare almost an emergency for it.
The previous language or the new language?
Either one.
I don't think the new language would, but I think that the previous language might be too strict.
Mary, Mr. Chairman, Mary, I'm not sure if I understand you. I don't understand the circumstances when a special election would be an emergency, or when it would be necessary to declare an emergency on a whole special election.
I'm under the impression that special elections are part of the procedure is that you have to declare an emergency, that you can't go for, a regular length of pre-time on.
I'm not sure, Mary, but I don't think that's the intent of anything, or the effect of anything that we've written into the charter. For instance, we provide that a referendum shall be held at a general or special election within X number of days without any reference to a declaration of emergency. I can check that out a little bit, but I don't think it's a problem.
Lisa?
What does substantial mean in this case?
Legally.
Means non-trivial.
Water shortage is substantial?
Well, the word, of course, is in reference to the succeeding words about endangering the public health, safety, and welfare. And what we're talking about is a condition which would have that effect. If it has that effect, then it's substantial. If it doesn't, it's not in this context. I make myself clear.
I just wanted to ask the question to be sure. I think it sounds reasonably good to me, Rick. I just want to be sure.
Yes, we have a motion by Holmes, second by Josephson. Is there any further discussion on the definition? Question called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, 1414 is adopted.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I take a moment to introduce my cousin, Jerry Shaw, of Juneau originally of Latham, Seattle. Jerry, yes.
Jerry, pleasure to have you here. Have you been able to follow her around?
Good God, he just got me the 5 minutes I was home today. I don't know how many times he called.
Get my postcard?
Yeah. It'll make me a letter because he hasn't been able to catch me going through.
Section 309, the Ombudsman section.
The what?
Ombudsman. Excuse me. Joe, did you have something? I have
Mr. Chairman, I just have a word on the ombudsman, and I have to leave. But the former charter, the first draft, was silent as to the appointment of the ombudsman, and this simply amplifies that he's not only in the legislative branch, he's appointed by the ombudsman, he's appointed by the Assembly and serves at the Assembly's pleasure. This is consistent with the Commission's action of the other. Chairman, I move for adoption of the order.
Second.
Who moved?
Sure.
Parsons.
Mr. Chairman, Joe, did you set charter production?
Sherry will
Sherry will
take that.
Thought you were leaving town.
Chairman, before he leaves, Joe, I'm going to give notice of reconsideration on the designated keys. Pardon? You take it up tonight? No, that's not. Then we have notice today.
All right. There's a motion on the floor by Parsons, second by Troney, to adopt section 309, changes, modifications. Is there any further discussion? No discussion? I'll call question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, so ordered. Section 1302, disposal of utilities.
Mr. Chairman, you have before you a suggestion to add the wording 3/5 of the qualified voters to substitute for a majority. It was felt in committee that perhaps an extraordinary, and I guess maybe we had a discussion in, have we had the discussion in the full? Okay, so this is merely the draft wording for you.
Chairman, I move for adoption.
Second.
Moved by Parsons, second by Kozlowski. Adopt 1302 as modified, eliminating a majority and adding 3/5.
Can I ask a question?
How's that?
Can I ask a question?
Certainly may.
You wouldn't dare say no, would you? You can't take out, you can't take out an initiative to get utilities sold?
That's correct,
How come?
because we require a 3/5 majority.
Mr. Chairman, wouldn't it only put the 3/5 qualification on the voting on it that was brought up by the initiative?
You could have an initiative and then the initiative would be voted upon. And then you would have to get 3/5.
I suppose that an ordinance could be passed by initiative calling for the question to be placed on the ballot whether the utilities would be sold, and that question would have to pass by 60% in order to prevail. I would think that's true. Initiative is reasonable. It would in effect take 2 votes. There would be, and you're right, you see the pattern. So it would work ultimately. And of course the charter could be amended by a simple initiative for that matter.
But why can't we say only pursuant to an ordinance or initiative?
Well, I see your idea, Lisa, except I think that the ordinance could be adopted. The ordinance would have its identical place in the process, whether the ordinance were adopted by initiative or not. I mean, the initiative is used for the purpose of adopting the ordinance. And so this language would still accommodate the use of the initiative procedure, as I see it. So, it would still, excuse me.
You would require the placing on the ballot by ordinance, and that ordinance could be initiated by the initiative.
That's what I was trying to say, yes.
But the 3/5 would relate to what? To the vote on the vote of the people.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what we're trying to say. When the ordinance is prepared as a result of the initiative, and it places the matter before the people for vote, and that vote must be 3/5.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have been informed that an initiative is an ordinance. I am under the impression that an initiative is an ordinance. It can direct that another ordinance be prepared, but in itself it is an ordinance, I
That's right.
understand. So
Sure.
I think that you can have an initiative that would do the job all in one step. But this is calling for a special majority for that ordinance. that initiative.
We could word it so as to avoid the two elections.
This is what I'm trying to say. I think that it is worded so that it wouldn't call for two.
Well,
So long as the initiative were approved of by 3/5. But if we said, as I understand it, an initiative is an ordinance.
it's an awful gray kind of thing, Mary, and I don't pretend to understand it all, but normally I think of an initiative as resulting in the enactment of an ordinance. I mean, you put a law, an ordinance on the books by going through the whole initiative process.
Well,
And
Mr. Chairman, for instance, now the capital site went on as an initiative, and you voted on that.
Right.
Then law was established. Are you saying that in a local election that an initiative would be drawn in the form of an ordinance, or would that be action following?
normally an initiative, either at the state or local level, is drawn in the form of a bill or an ordinance, as the case may be, and it becomes law when ratified by a vote.
Frank, I'm willing to take a chance on the noise for a while.
And what Mary's saying is going to be gone. I think what Lisa and Mary are getting at is if a movement of the people to sell the utilities were undertaken, we could telescope the process so that they didn't have to have one vote on the ordinance calling for the sale of the utility and then another vote with the extraordinary majority. You just have one vote.
Extraordinary majority.
Yeah, and I think we ought to make that clear if that's what we want to do, because it's
I think you could. I, for one, would request that you, Mr. Chairman, I move that we send this to the Charter Production Committee for
We have before us a motion by Parsons, second by Harless, to adopt. Now, do you wish to withdraw that motion?
No, just to refer to committee.
Second.
To refer to committee.
What's number? Or 6:30,
6:15, it's 6:10 now.
Mr. Chairman, I think that concludes all of the things that we need to discuss.
All those in favor of the motion? Aye. Those opposed? So ordered.
This other material shouldn't even be here, it's just draft.
Mr. Chairman, with reference to the Charter Production Committee, we're coming up on the deadline. Joe and I plan to get together at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning for a brief meeting, and would request anyone who would wish to attend. We thought about Monday noon, but Jane's having an information meeting then, so we felt we ought to get some drafting done. We'd be here at 9 o'clock.
What are the issues now? What are you...
We're in transition.
That's the key now, I think. It's transition.
I think now, too, we're going to have to...
Sure.
we're going to have to get organized on what we have today and get it, throw all this trash away and get the stuff that we've got actually has been approved in front of us. And in other words, get our first draft or the second draft of the
Have we
charter.
asked how that's coming, or what the possibilities are of getting that?
If we need, incidentally, Pat, I mean it, if we need somebody else to, now we're in a crunch for time in the next 10 days. If we need somebody else in here, Kelly girl or somebody you know or anybody to come in and do some work, I think we should do it. We can't ask you to do the whole damn thing and get it done yesterday. If we need additional help.
We may need additional typewriter, too.
I think we could find somebody with a typewriter, but
Maybe Pat can tell us what...
We're actually... I really feel, based on just... The only thing I'm behind in right now is the minutes
of the meetings that I missed, because I have to transcribe all of those from the tapes. But just based on the information that I do have from the meetings and from the Charter Production Committee, I would say if I had a day, like Monday, for instance, or even tomorrow, if I would just shelve the minutes for now and work tomorrow on what I've got up to date, I think by the end of the day I should be able to have
Well, let's
a
give you
rough draft.
let's give you that direction then for tomorrow, and get as much as you possibly can get done. And again, I gotta reiterate, if you need help, just do it, because we've got to have this out. We've only got
And is
10 days.
is our action through next Thursday our last time, and then Monday it goes? Monday it goes.
Next Thursday's the next full
Now,
meeting.
we can have a copy that has penciled in things, and it does not have to be a finished and beautiful copy, but our action is over on the 21st. And we must file on the 21st a copy with, we must file a copy with the clerk of the city, the clerk of the borough, the clerk of Girdwood, and the clerk of Glen Elms by the 21st, and a resolution to the assembly for that meeting of the 21st, requesting that they set the date September 9. Now, you might check with Mary Coffey on who prepares that resolution and when we have to submit it to her to get it to the assembly on the 21st. The later the better. Actually, we could prepare the resolution tomorrow and just include the copy of the charter on the evening of the request.
Right.
The next full meeting is for next Thursday.
I wonder, Jim, there's going to be in this transition, there's going to be some things that we may have to discuss and decide on, and I think
block in some time.
we ought to figure a full meeting Tuesday night. And you got to figure that next week you might have to have one Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, and maybe even Saturday, because
Better you block it in now.
let's try to block in Tuesday and Thursday for sure. And
Do we have a charter production committee, or do we need it? What do you anticipate in that time? There will have to be, I'm sure, charter production meetings filling in around. I tentatively set it while we're in a front. I have to apologize to the commission. I'm going to be out of town next week. We have an assigned date for our cabin, and that's this week.
you're giving me your policies.
Let's do that. However, I will. Not held over that thing.
No proxy day.
No, excuse me, Chair. On the meeting, Arlo. I will abide by any decisions of the commission. I don't. You don't have any choice, Chair. You people do some shocking things when I leave town. I think we'll take care of you. Yeah, fix my way.
Stick around and be back.
We'll have a charter production meeting then 9 o'clock Saturday morning, and we'll have a regular meeting Tuesday evening and a regular meeting Thursday evening, and I don't doubt that there will be a charter production meeting sometime Monday or Tuesday. Don't you think, but at this time, we're not sure just where we're...
Probably a short one each day
Yeah.
would be necessary. But here I am
Chairman,
setting up
I
the
just
schedules
noticed
for you.
reconsideration of my vote on the designated seats for the next meeting on Tuesday.
I'll second that.
All right. Notice reconsideration on designated seat.
Mr. Chairman?
That was by Jim Parsons, also by Harless.
No, just, he needs a second, and
Yeah,
mine
yeah.
is a courtesy vote, I know.
I don't understand the handling of a
He needs
reconsideration.
it, he needs a
Then,
second.
then we vote that night to reconsider, whether to reconsider, and then
Like
that
they
brings
did
back
it.
the motion.
Like they did the motion to rescind out of the vote. Okay.
No,
Not
All
quite.
right.
Mr. Chairman?
Not quite, but
One thing on the transition, are we going to have on, by Saturday, some information, some feedback from the public employees as to, the issues that were raised there?
Joe was supposed to have contacted them.
I really think that's vital. That maybe it's a relatively simple thing, and I'm somewhat confused as to just what they do want. And did that young gentleman ever give us his testimony?
Mark Thornberger, that's a big no.
Thornberger? And another one that might be contacted would be Art Forster with the firemen's group union is also very concerned.
Forrester?
Yeah, Art Forster. He's a assistant chief, I think.
Harless, what is it that you're referring to that they would address?
Well, there was some discussion on method of bargaining, whether their rights were, really, it just gets down to their rights being protected in the new government. And I'm not aware enough of the issues. I don't
Mr.
think any of
Chairman,
us
you know,
really understand.
I've had a dry run on this. It's absolutely essential to provide for that type of problem in excruciating detail. I'm dealing with the transition of the state-operated schools to regional school districts. The legislature did not adequately provide for what happens to the collective bargaining agreements. And it's been a constant headache trying to keep the lid on that during this period. So we should really spare ourselves pain by doing it.
They're not the only, we're dealing with labor groups in both the city and the borough.
Right.
It could be a very heavily organized group, support we should not alienate at least.
Well, that's right. And of course, we have the problem as to possible conflicts between the negotiated agreements now applicable to city employees and now applicable to borough employees.
Well, I made on my notes there, hiring preferences spelled out in union contracts, labor agreement, field adoption of the administrative code may exempt collective bargaining rights. Potential of conflict due to different unions identify problems. In other words, they really are asking, I think, that it be spelled out rather specifically, and Mayor Sullivan brought that up too. And, Mr. Chairman, there was one other area of concern. Did we run these changes, or have we had an opportunity to get back to the bond council?
No.
What
Once
were
we
you
get,
thinking I was going to say?
The bond council and finance,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think we really hammered out those finance sections pretty well.
but we did promise them.
Yeah, we promised to get that. Did we answer the concerns raised, do you think, by Sheila Gallagher?
I think we did.
And I wonder if Joe ever went through and briefed that testimony that we received. If we need somewhere in the process to go through those multitude of letters that we have to see if, I think we've pretty well relied, haven't we, on individual commissioners' recollection of the public hearing. And not all of those things were transmitted. I think maybe that's something the charter production maybe needs to think about.
You're assigned over the weekend.
Well, I think I'm taking it correct.
Each one of us should have most of the letters. They should have been all indicated for you.
Yeah,
And Patty
I think you're right.
got the chamber replies on their, about their standing, which should be meted out to you. I asked her to summarize them I don't know how close you are to the country. There's about, I'd say, 75 cards, maybe 100 cards.
And they all say just exactly
No, they
right.
don't.
Good chairman.
Some of them no. There's about, I'd say, 15% of them anyway show some, they don't approve or they have other ideas.
Mr. Chairman, before we break up, on the question of runoffs, did the commission decide to have runoffs in the case of mayor and school board? Okay.
It was worded to be all at large
Right.
seats, so that
Yeah, it's just the highest person in the assembly. Well, incidentally, for your information, currently the Eagle River has appealed the case.
Has.
oh,
I wondered about that today.
I
I
thought
was
there
thinking about that as I was in the tower this morning.
a timely appeal, and it is
Well, it's timely.
they used up all of it.
There's always a question as to whether time begins to run from the day the judge gives his decision from the bench or from the time that he signs the order, and the courts give the guy the benefit of the doubt.
And
They always take the later
timely.
vote.
He wasn't timely in terms of the ruling from the bench, but he was in
Correct. I discussed the matter with the clerk of the Supreme Court, and she said, well, she felt sure the court would not bar them on the basis of the time.
Will we be through with the election before it's heard?
Very doubtful.
Will there be a request for the stay, do you think?
No, at least there is not. There has not been. And I think he is foreclosed from moving for a stay at this point by not having asked the Superior Court for a stay as part of the rule. But anything can happen, as you know, in the sense that the Supreme Court could decide very peremptorily that it's going to do one thing or another, and I really have no way of predicting.
Well,
And was there anything further on the Bill of Rights?
Another thing, before we leave the Eagle River situation, Joe brought up the idea, which I think is worth pursuing, that the plaintiffs in this case should be contacted either by Frank or somebody else, and it should be pointed out to them that the apportionment setup that the commission has adopted is much more to their advantage than the apportionment that the Assembly has adopted, and that in a sense they're working against their interests in that regard by seeking the destruction of the Charter Commission at this point. And it may be that that will strike a responsive chord.
Yeah, I'll call Lee. I didn't know. I don't know, who's this yours?
Yes, sir.
We have been adjourned for some minutes.
We got a lot done after that. Have we? Did we skip for commissioners' comments?
Did we what?
do you wish to comment?
Commissioners' comments?
I thought that's what we were doing.
Oh, well, that's what I thought we'd been going through, comments and
Well,
comments.
Joanne, this is an official, non-official meeting. I just want to state that in view that our preamble says that we're forming a more responsive government to achieve common goals and so forth and so on, that when we have 11 members again, I would like to bring up the possibility of including in the transition section the wording for the vote for the people on the type of districting that they want when we have 11 members present.
And I would give notice that if we're doing that, do it on the form of executive too.
Mr. Chairman, there will be 11 members present before we present the charter to the commission because Dick won't be back and I'm going out of town before the meeting on Tuesday.
I'm leaving town Sunday night. I'll be gone. I'll be here all next week and we'll work my heart out along with 2 million other things, but I'll be gone.
You're not going to go any other million other things because I'm going to get you corralled down here and you can just sit down and work.
Frank, you don't know what my wife's like.
I will change that to 10 people present then. We're going to have 10.
Well, you'll
For the
probably only have
approval.
9, since Dick probably won't be here.
We're going to prove it before you get back to you.
I will be back the 22nd.
Do you have any little, well, you'll be able to get in charge of directions.
No, I really don't. I just want to be sure that you remember to do something about the salaries in transition, because we don't provide anything about the salaries, and we do.
What do we want to say about it?
Well, we do have a
Nobody shall
specific
be paid.
provision that you won't increase the salaries for 1 year, that no increase, and since we haven't provided what salary will apply, we ought to just provide that the assembly by ordinance may set the initial salary. But just in case I forget on Saturday.
In relation
Yeah.
to this, just a half a second for you. I have been getting some feedback that possibly someone from this group might be interested in running for one of the new positions. I would caution you, serious thinking in regard to that from the standpoint of equal time on television and being in any one of these sessions here.
We wait till the last day to
Yeah,
file.
yeah, that would be my suggestion. Galvin back. So just think about that when you're looking at the schedule and everything. Keep that in the back of your mind, because it'll preclude any other appearances on that.
Mary has definitely stated she was going to run.
Well, she hasn't announced for publication.
I haven't announced it for publication.
And you can give all sorts of hints as long as you have the file.
Well, I think, just as a matter of policy, that those individuals that are going to run are going to have to be very discreet in how they use the opportunity for public.
Everybody except V and me, and I sometimes doubt the.
Well, he's not going to be out there. He's not going to be out there.
And Joe Josephson's going to be in mainland China.
He's going to be in China.
And I'm going to be in my pottery studio.
And you're going to pot. You're going to
No, I may be in Chicago.
Did you say that was going to be a brief session Saturday?
Yeah.
A brief.
3. Oh, I thought between 9 and noon.
Hey, I've got to go change too. What time is that thing?
6:30, 7:30.
6:30 now.
Well, we have, is that, that's creative where
Is that
water.
supposed to be?
It's 7 o'clock.
Are you kidding?
What time is it?
It's 6:29.
I thought it was
What
supposed to be
time,
at
now what
7:30.
time
I
is it
understood
down at
7:30.
Yeah, Timmy Lord?
7:30.
That's what I understood.
Yes, I have the beer thing in
Oh,
my
and then we
glove.
can all go drink.
Would you like to go for a drink?
Yeah, let me change. Jerry, Chairman Frank Reed, Jerry Shaw,
Jerry.
Sherry Holmes,
Sure.
and Mary Froney,
Right.
Lisa Parker, Jim Parsons, Jerry Shaw.
This is your
My cousin, who started off to be
Yes,
funeral
and otherwise.
and then he is with
I
a
have been all over.
accounting
I'm
firm
on the way back from Fairbanks.
in
Can't you tell by
Seattle.
the dust on my boots?
Oh, not Fairbanks.
Yeah, great.
But he wanted the Shaws to come through.
Yeah.
Were you a Shaw before you were married?
We won't tell our family.
We won't tell how we're related.
But we're
Listen,
kidding.
I spent summers at a place where 5 of the 10 cottages, or grew up at this place, where 5 of the 10 cottages were owned by relatives, and it went all the way down through the cousins to the extent that I had first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, first cousins once removed, first
Yeah.
cousins twice removed, second cousins once removed, second cousins twice removed, nieces, nephews, aunts,
Speaking of
uncles,
people
and
like
grandparents.
2 or 3 weeks ago on Saturday, we were over at Mary's George's for dinner.
Oh, and here.
Oh, great.
Another one of your
Yeah,
aunts.
yeah, I get along with that side of it.
I do too.
Say, has anybody heard that the mayor's gonna run?
of Anchorage.
Which mayor?
George. The implication last night from Dave Rose is that he is planning to, as well as be against.
Be against?
He's planning to run for it and be against.
That'll be
That
interesting.
is the information that I derived from what
That would be an interesting
It's going to be an interesting
thing to see how you do it, how you run for
That
a
may be
position. and-
kind of a snit. You know, I mean.
Yeah, he may not actually be doing it.
I'll tell you what, if that thing isn't until 7:30, we'd have a drink first and come back over here, because I've got a key. That might be.
You have to change.
Yeah, I brought long
You
dress.
brought, just like me.
Well, yeah, you
Why
got
don't
it.
you change and I'll call my husband and
All right.
then we
Why don't
can
you
talk.
sit down and relax?
You need
We'll
to
go
get your
fly-
car and I'll put my junk in.
Well, dear, I'm going to go for my car right now.
Okay, and
You're long dressing?
Oh, yeah, but it's my bicentennial long
She
dress.
can't wait till I'm in town.
Scoot on that.
Oh,
She just knows what I was
I
coming,
don't.
Marlis, does the Bicentennial Commission make any
With my earth?
grants to
Not very
people who advertise the Bicentennial?
Been out
The Bicentennial.
today.
You're wearing that, wearing that.
Never do it.
How come?